This show does not provide medical advice. If you're having a medical emergency, please call 911. Anything you hear here should be discussed with your primary health care provider. Hello, and welcome to Everyone Dies, the radio show produced by Passionate World Talk Radio, whose goal it is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. I'm Marianne Matzo, and for the next 30 minutes, I am your host. So today I'm going to be talking with Rae Ramsey, who's a life coach and a pet communicator. And I heard about her when I was doing an interview with Lucy Morgenstern, who hopefully you've listened to the interview by now, where Lucy was talking about rituals for pets when they die. But she talked about her friend who had talked with some of her pets during that process. And so I said, I really don't know anything about this, and I would love to talk with your friend and see what this is all about. So Lucy Morgenstern was kind enough to introduce me to Rae. So Rae, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. So you're a life coach and a pet communicator. Tell us what a pet communicator is.
Okay. Well, you know how you can call somebody up and have a conversation, and then when you're through the conversation, you say bye-bye and you hang up. Well, it's not that different, because what I do is to communicate, but in a way that I call it telepathic. It can be called many different things, but it really is non-verbal communication. And so if I'm going to talk to an animal, I'll, of course, first talk to the person. And when I connect with the animal, I will just do it silently. And I do it by picturing and by thinking words. And the animal, 9 times out of 10, or maybe 10 out of 10, 99% of the way, will get that. And so there's usually an issue that needs to be discussed, and of course the person is on the phone, and so that issue is probably affecting the person's life. And so what I do is to do something very similar to what you would do in a therapy session. I ask them what is going on and how do you feel about it, and kind of get it into it that way. And so it does become a 3-way conversation because I'm talking to the person and the animal.
So is a pet communicator and a pet psychic the same thing?
Well, those are different ways of referring to someone who communicates telepathically or silently with animals without using spoken words, yes.
Now, can you do the same thing with people?
I'm very, very intuitive with people, but I don't practice that with people. There's no need to, because I can we can either get together and talk, or we can talk on the phone. So I don't have that need because we have a shared language, unless I'm working with someone who speaks a different language. But with the animals, I do it silently. You wouldn't, if we were doing a communication today, you wouldn't hear anything. When I might say, well, Marianne, let me pose that question to Sweetie Pie, and then you'll just hear silence. And during that silence, I will be talking silently to the animal, and I think words, and I feel the emotions that the person or the animal is feeling, and so that helps a lot. So does that answer your question, or do you need more? Yeah.
No. When were you aware, how old were you when you were aware that you could hear animals speak?
I love that question. I learned probably when I was in kindergarten or before. I don't remember exactly that, but I lived in a town in Michigan, and it was a
really. I'm from Michigan. Where did you live?
No.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I am from East Lansing, Michigan.
Oh, okay. I was from Lincoln Park, which was, the suburbs they built after World War II.
Lincoln Park around Detroit, or
yeah, like about 15 minutes south of Detroit.
Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, that's just amazing.
So two Michigan girls, anyway.
Yeah, I guess. Well, we have to pause to delight in this. Oh, that's wonderful. So that's when I was growing up in East Lansing, I was in a neighborhood where there was a cat lady, and she had about 30 cats. And I didn't think it was weird at all. And my father would take us over there when we'd go on these walks. And I would just go crazy over the animals. And so what I found from that was that I could tell what they wanted and what they were saying and why they were sad. And so I picked up both words and emotions. And that's how it started out. But then as it developed, then I would actually focus on a specific issue, and that would be the reason for the call. And
now, when that happened when you were pre-K or kindergarten, did you tell your parents?
Yes, I did, and they were very open-minded. However, that's a very good point, because I decided not to tell my friends because I just knew they would think it was weird. And being weird when you're in kindergarten, that'll follow you through grade school and high school and all that, and I didn't want people to make fun of me. But I did tell, I remember I had a best friend in first grade, and we were walking along the street one day, and I said, I have a secret to tell you, and that was the secret. And she took it very well. So, but I chose her to tell. So, and I don't tell everybody even now, because many people cannot get that, and they just think I'm a weirdo, and that's fine. I can handle that, but that gets in the way of their using my talents to help their animals.
I see. Now, are you able to talk to both living and dead animals?
Yes, I am.
So can you tell me more about how do you talk with a dead animal?
Well, really, just about the way I talk with a live person or a live animal, because we're all spirits, and there's usually an issue to discuss, and that issue sometimes is why did you die so suddenly, or what was wrong with your leg? Those things that have affected the animal and the person. And so I will just either, I'll say it to them in my mind. I won't say it out loud to the person, but the person knows I'm going to ask that question or say that thing to the animal, and so it's silent. I speak silently, and the conversation starts. And I do the same thing that we would do if we met in a gathering. I would introduce myself, and we might get into what we do and everything. And so that's pretty much the way it happens. Happens a little differently each time because the animal is a little different. Sometimes they're reticent at first, and sometimes you can't shut them up. They're just talking, talk. And I love both of those states. So that's how I do it. I do it in English, and I could haltingly do it in a couple of other languages, but I usually just speak English when I'm doing an animal communication.
So when I was talking with Lucy, she was saying that she had, I think it was 2 cats at separate times, that she questioned whether or not to euthanize them because they were very sick. And she said that she called you and you talked with the cats, and they said they didn't want to be euthanized, that they wanted to die at home. Have you had pets that said, no, I'm ready to go, just have me euthanized, or do most say, I'd rather just go home?
I would say that most would make the choice to stay on this plane. But many will say, no, I'm ready to go, and that has happened not as often as wanting to stay, but it does happen. And so I can handle either state, because if they want to go and they're in a lot of pain, and that's why a lot of us want to go, of course. And so if they're in a lot of pain, that may be the reason. But it also may be because they miss someone, a human, who lived their life with this animal, and they don't see any purpose in their lives anymore. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it can be very helpful, because in talking to the animal, they may decide that, oh, well, I do have something to live for. So it just depends on the situation with that particular animal.
So one of the things that kind of bridges me to something that I was thinking about, and I met my now husband about 2 years ago, and his wife had died 2 years before that. And he had an Australian Shepherd named Dimple Rose. And Dimple, when I met her, she didn't give off a happy vibe, if you know what I mean. She would walk only short distances for a walk, and I thought to myself, she must really be grieving. Do dogs grieve for their owners?
Absolutely, yes, and so do cats. Sometimes to the point of just dying, just dying on their own. Yes, definitely. And I think they've written operas about those things, about people losing their loves and then choosing to die. I'm an opera singer, so
Are you really?
I relate. I don't do it anymore, but I relate everything to the drama of opera. So, yeah.
So how do you know then if your pet is grieving?
Well, some of the same things happen with us. They may not eat very well, or they may not eat at all. Sometimes they'll cry out in their sleep. They carry themselves like a human would carry themselves when they don't feel happy. So they're the physical signs, and then you can walk into a room and look around, meet several people, and then you see somebody across the room, and you know that they're in trouble. You know they're unhappy, and so that can happen with animals as well.
And so, how do you help an animal with grief? Like if you were working with an animal, what would you do?
Well, I would work with the animal not very differently than I would work with a person. And that means that I will, first of all, I will just listen, ask them to tell me how it happened, tell me how they feel, so that they can be heard. And, of course, I'm getting information that will help me to help them. So I will do that. I also have a sense that even if they don't say anything, I have a sense as to how what emotional state they're in. Because not everybody feels sad or depressed when they lose an animal. Sometimes it was so hard for so long that they're happy that the animal is now on the other side, or however they would put that. So does that answer the question, or?
Well, how do you? So let's say, like with Dimple Rose, if she was sad or she was depressed or she was grieving, does a chat with you help her, or is it one of those things like for people where it's like therapy sessions over time? And also, we always say to people, well, you're not going to ever, quote unquote, get over your grief. You'll learn kind of to adapt and to live with it. And is that also the same for animals?
Say that again, the last part?
Well, is it also the same for animals, that they don't ever get over their grief?
Okay. Again, that's an individual situation. I do believe that people and animals do get over their grief, but I wouldn't approach a session that way or approach a person or an animal that way.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing is that I'm present for them. Very, very important to know that there's another sentient being listening to you and empathizing with you. So that's very, very important. And so I will listen, and sometimes they'll just cry out, and you won't hear it as a human being, but I'm hearing it. I'm getting it. And
mm-hmm.
they'll cry out, or they'll say, I don't want to live anymore. All the things that we say, we feel
mm-hmm.
when we lose somebody, that is possible for the animals as well. And not all animals react exactly the same.
And so, does it take a series of sessions then for them to work that through?
Yes, sometimes. And
mm-hmm.
Sometimes it actually, they can let go of it in that session.
Really?
I would say, yeah. Animals are, they're not as complex in a sense as we are,
mm-hmm.
although
mm-hmm.
I say that with reservations. But they will feel that a weight has lifted. Very often I hear that it's, I feel so much lighter, or I haven't felt this good for so long. You know, they will make a comment about that. So it depends on the animal as it depends on the person. And it may take a few sessions, but not always. Sometimes that it just letting go and somebody really hearing your pain and hearing your grief. And we're all that way, aren't we? I mean, when you
yes.
talk, you know, if it's a therapist or a friend or your husband or your wife, it lifts a burden, and it can, of course, come back, but it may be lighter the next time. So it's very. I just feel that one of the most beautiful gifts we can give each other is to listen. And so I work that way with animals as I do with people.
So for those of us who aren't pet communicators, can we sit with a grieving pet and talk our own English, and would they understand us?
Yes, because they're really they're getting your feelings and your emotions. And let's say if you're offering a lot of emotional support, they will get that support. It will come across very much like it would with us. If I were really depressed about something and I told my husband about it, that he would probably lift it by listening to me.
I see. So one of the things that our listeners can realize is that kind of talking with their pet about loss or grief, if somebody in their family has died, will help the pet understand. Does that sound, do I have that right?
Well, yes, that's one way, but if just by telling them that you're feeling the pain that they're feeling, and that you wish you could lift it, and you love them, and you know, if let's say they've lost their best furry friend, that you will tell them that you're with them, and you're so sorry that, you know, all the things that you would say to a person. And those emotions will come across to the animals, not necessarily the words. It depends on the human and the animal.
So in your sessions that you've had with pets, can you tell us any stories about interactions that you've had with pets and what happened?
Yes, I can. I was reading over a lot of my notes from working with people and their pets, and you know, I've had as many experiences as one can have with this sort of work. So would you want to focus on like one event or one set of feelings, or how would you want to do that?
Gosh, I don't know. What do you think would be the most interesting and sort of educational story for our listeners to hear in terms of this idea of grief and loss and maybe euthanasia, because we do talk mostly about dying and death in this program. So
yes, right. Okay, so I have a client who actually lost both of her cats in the last couple of years, and the second one she lost very recently, and she felt very sad, but I was, of course, doing the work of a communicator and a supporter, and so I asked the cat some questions, and just offered sympathy and support in hearing the answers, and sometimes an animal specifically misses sitting with another animal, or chasing each other around the house, or if you're a dog, you all those long walks that you took together with your human, and so there are things that made you happy in this life when they were here, but when the animal leaves, then you feel a hole in your life, and animals feel that too. So this one cat that lost her friend, I just asked her to tell me about what was missing in her life now, and how did she feel when she was going through the death of the animal, and so I helped them kind of to relive the pain so that it can lift, and it won't always lift at that time, but there's an opportunity for it to live. And most people feel better after they have had a session with me, and most animals feel better as well.
So what did this cat say in terms of what she or he was feeling when her companion was dying?
Well, the one that I'm thinking of, I worked with her with the animal after her companion died, so I wasn't going through the death process with her, but again, I asked her how that made her feel, and very often the animal will cry out. You're not going to hear it, and nobody in the room will hear it, but I'll get it. And so they're in a state where they need to let emotion go. They need to cry out, and so they can do that. And it's silent to us unless you're doing the work that I'm doing. It's silent to us, but it's real for them in that they're letting out emotion and they're revisiting a very difficult situation where they lost their friend, because it often is a great friend, and sometimes the only animal friend that animal had.
Right. So is it more of a raw emotion, or are there actual words in terms of this is how I felt?
It can be both, and the raw emotion will be crying out, or just crying, and not necessarily something you could see as a bystander, but I hear it, I feel it. So there's that comes across to me, and what was the other part of your question?
Well, do they actually use words too to verbalize how they're feeling?
Yes,
or is
they
it
do.
Just, okay.
Yeah,
and
they
so
do
did this cat use words? Like, what did she have to say?
Well, I asked her what she missed most about her friend, and she said, well, we always slept together, and now I don't have a friend to sleep with me anymore. They have the person, but not the animal. And so I miss her. I feel there's something missing in my life, and it is missing in my life because she's not here anymore. And sometimes they will cry out, and I hear it. You wouldn't hear it, or somebody else wouldn't hear it, but I hear it. I get it. And it's like, oh, how will I live? How will I live? We were always together. We were sisters, or we were brothers. And how can I go on? Like she's not going to come back. I just want to die myself. So it's that kind of feeling that that has been written into operas and plays and the emotions of loss.
Wow.
And so the words can take different forms, but the emotion of great loss. And I can, if I want to revisit the loss of my animals, I can go back to those emotions, and they're all still there. So it can come across in just emotions, or it can come across in words, which sometimes turn into very heavy emotions.
I see. So with your own pets, do you know what they're thinking and what they want to say to you all the time?
Oh, that's such a wonderful question. I know intuitively pretty much what my animals say to me, and they talk to me a lot, and they talk through their language. I have 2 cats, and but they also they'll come up to me and just glare at me in the eyes, and you probably had that. This has come up and say, "What are you doing?" It's like, I thought you were done with that, and or don't you see how miserable I am? It's that kind of thing that that I translate into words, and they're the words that we would use as human beings. So sometimes an animal just gets depressed, and it takes a bit of time and several sessions sometimes to get to the bottom of the grief.
See, I do that with our pets, and with Dimple Rose. She's like I said, she's a very spoiled Australian Shepherd who was, the only child and did everything with her mom. And so I've given her the persona of like somebody from Woodward Avenue in Detroit. She's really tough and doesn't mince words.
She's a big dog around town, huh? Watch out, she's here.
And I'll have her like say things to my husband, and then I'll look at him and I'll say, "You gonna let her talk to you that way?"
Oh, dear. Oh, he sounds pretty good at it too. Oh, dear. I promise never to tell anybody about this.
So I have these, like personas that I've given the pets. I don't know if they're right or not, but they seem to, reflect their their attitudes, because they like, especially Dimple has, like once dinner is over, she's like trying to herd us to bed because she's ready to go to bed. And the other night I was up late working on a class, and she just like comes in my office and starts barking at me. I said, "Girlfriend, you want to go to bed, you go to bed, but you leave me alone." We're having this argument.
Well, of course. And then did she kind of slither off with disgust? No.
She's like, hey. And then she lays down on the floor and glares at me.
No.
She's not going to back off.
Oh, that's kind of a harumph, It's like,
yes.
All right, I'll sit here, but you're going to pay for it later.
Yeah, I'm going to stare at you. Yeah, and she swears all the time. I mean, she's just, she's.
Oh my goodness.
But
she sounds adorable.
Well, I don't know if that's really her persona or if just, I'm projecting onto her. But I tend to do that with animals, so maybe I'm a pet communicator or something too.
Well, you sound like it. Yeah. Well, if you love animals, obviously, and you've already had some experience getting their emotions and their feelings and all that, and you could develop that definitely, and I think you would really enjoy it. I did training. I didn't really feel a need to do training, but I met somebody who was just a very special person, and so I did some training, and you can do that, and yeah, that's you don't hear about it unless you're really interested in doing it, and then you do hear about it. So I trained with several communicator teachers. And it helped because it's kind of a shortcut to being able to and also a shortcut, but also a way of testing out your development. And
I see.
Yeah, just being able to run things by people in the class and the teacher and all that. Yeah.
Well, I kind of did with Dimple what I would do with my patients in terms of, she had this sudden loss of her mom. It was very quick. And I talked with her about it and rambled on and on. And, it's took her a while. And then what I've noticed over time is, like, she started this summer, for example, after she eats her breakfast, she comes and runs and jumps on the bed and snuggles up with me. And I said to David, did she do that with Stacia? And he's like, yeah, I guess she did. But it was a year and a half after I met her that she started to do that, So she's kind of, I guess, I don't know, more and more trusting or willing to love again. I don't know what it is personally, because I really can't communicate her, but that's what the feeling I have is that, like, well, all right, seems like you're not going anywhere, so I guess I'll love you.
Oh, isn't that so sweet? But trust yourself, because if you feel it, you're picking up their feelings, and I think we in the society talk about, well, I'm just projecting my own feelings and all that, but no, it's real. This is real. So I'm glad that you have had that experience.
Yeah, well, it's been fun, and I'm so glad that you took the time out of your day to talk with us, because I think this is an interesting thing for people to know. And even if they don't talk to a pet communicator, but you can, when somebody dies, talk to the pet about, here's what happened, or that was really scary, or they didn't leave because they didn't love you, they left because they had to, and let them know that they'll still be cared for, they'll still be loved, but not by that person. Do you think I have that right?
Yes, exactly. If you were talking to an animal who had lost his friend, you could say those exact words, and they will get the feeling. They won't necessarily get, all the English and all that, but they will get the feeling, and they'll get the support. And that's very, very key, because they do need, just like we do, support when they have a loss. Yeah.
Well, Rae, thank you so much. And for our listeners, if you want to contact Rae, her business address is Rae Ramsey. It's RaeRamsey, all one word, no space, at yahoo.com. That's Rae Ramsey at yahoo.com. So, Rae, thank you for visiting with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, and thank you, and I wish you well. This is a wonderful thing that you're doing. So thank you for thinking of me, yes.
And to our audience, thank you for spending time with me during our show, Everyone Dies. You can read our blogs and listen to our other podcasts at everyonedies.org. That's EVERY, the number 1, dies.org. Thank you to our producer, Jeannie White, and our CEO, Lillian Caldwell. We produce a new show every Wednesday to answer questions related to life-threatening illness, dying, and death. Remember, you can listen to Passionate World Talk Radio on Spreaker and our shows wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have a topic that you would like to discuss on our show, please email maryanne@everyonedies.org. That's MARIANNE@every1dies.org. I hope that you live your best life every day. And remember, every day is a gift. Thank you for listening.